Hello Crusaders, welcome back. Today we've received our final quarterly update before BlizzCon Online, or BlizzConline. That sounds like someone's gonna con you out of your money. Anyway, it's happening in February. This is the one we were waiting for. It's an itemization update and overhaul. In short, this was meaty update full of information on how the development team has taken what we saw in November of last year pertaining to items and stats and explored and updated it, taking into account much of the feedback from the community, which you'll see throughout the video. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. It really does help out with the algorithm, Hydra. Skill tree. As discussed in the September quarterly update video, there was a major update to the skill tree from what we were initially presented with in November of 2019. The example used demonstrated the changes made specifically to the sorcerer skill tree in a new format that resembled an actual tree, which we'll discuss in a coming video a bit more as it pertains to the lore of Diablo IV and its roots. I've said too much. Despite criticism pertaining to the design of the tree, the dev team felt that this approach was actually solid and have decided to go through with it, with the addition of the ability to respec your character's skills and abilities to an unlimited amount of times in order to play with different builds and skill preferences. So you're less likely to feel locked into a build until you farm endgame items like you did in Diablo 2, but it will not come freely. As you build your character through levels and difficulties, it will become more and more expensive to respec your character. Which in-game items this will cost is yet to be announced. Or perhaps currency? Stay tuned. Primary stats. As discussed in our Powers Explained video, the initial design of Diablo IV's stat system surrounded ability scores called powers and centered around 3 different categories: angelic, demonic, and ancestral. Each power had its own effect on different aspects of characters' combat prowess. The developers felt this system didn't quite speak to the theme that they were trying to achieve and didn't really help to accentuate what makes each class individually special. So they scrapped the system in exchange for something more closely resembling the statistics we've become accustomed to across the other titles in the franchise. In the place of powers, we now have strength, intelligence, willpower, and dexterity. Fans of the series will immediately note the similarities between these and the stat sets of the previous Diablo games. However, instead of each stat having a core function pertaining to damage or utility, such as Diablo 1 and 2, or just pure damage dumps as they were in Diablo 3, which, aside, lackluster, every stat will have varied uses per class. While each stat will have a basic function, such as increased defense via strength score or received healing via willpower, different stats will increase skill damage or even critical chances for different characters. So, no 2 stat builds will be the same per class, and quite possibly per character as well, depending on how varied you want your roster to be for every class. While these stats don't actually have lore implications as, say, powers, drawing from the high heavens, demons, or even humans' ancestry, their use will instead revert the game to a more dark fantasy theme, more so than high fantasy, as we know the devs are trying to move away from the latter, as that was a major critique for Diablo 3. Stat points will be given in stacks of 5 per level, along with 2 skill points, and can be supplemented by gear just as in previous installments, and even skill nodes will have varied effects if you meet certain stat thresholds. Holding extra perks for skills like additional crit chance and removing hindrances like slowing down the barbarian's movement speed while in Whirlwind. Weapon types. Another major update to the look and feel of the game is the updated weapon skill animations and how each weapon works compared to others. Along with a graphical update on skills, such as the example of the barbarian's use of upheaval, weapon speeds have made a comeback as well. Fans of Diablo 2 might recall how individual weapon types would greatly affect a character's speed of skill usage. This factor makes a return in Diablo 4. And the demonstration we were given is in the difference between spells cast by a sorceress using a staff versus one using a wand. The developers felt there needed to be a difference between each weapon in more than just an aesthetic design. Lighter weapons would permit one to make faster, lighter powered attacks and be able to reposition more often, while heavier weapons encourage a heavier, slower damage approach. This gives the player more customization of how they want to play their class. If you want to have a lighter skirmisher type character dashing and dancing around the enemies, or a full-on tanky class, the option is entirely yours, but also it gives gravity to your choices and makes them more meaningful. Additionally, each item will have their own physical characteristic categories, such as shields increasing block chance, and various shield types will contribute to this characteristic in various ways. Though who'll be able to use shields is still a mystery. One can only assume anyone, but we are of course holding out for the sword and board archetype, myself personally, a holy warrior, perhaps a paladin. A man can dream. A man can dream. Also, it should go to note that all the item icons got a big high resolution upgrade to their appearance to really accent the item itself, especially items you can't see on your character like rings. This is, of course, purely aesthetic, but it's actually kind of cool. Item qualities. The focused change here was essentially to put more emphasis on yellow tiered and higher items, to give them more value so you're not just passing up every item that doesn't have a glowing beam rising from it. The amount of affixes attributed to rare and higher tier items have been greatly increased, as has their potency. Additionally, we were given a brief glimpse into the planned item quality system at BlizzCon 2019. However, there was some initial confusion and speculation into the delineation between legendary and mythic items. Before, we've only known the item system to cap at legendary or unique tiers, so to even fathom something going beyond legendary was an intriguing proposition. Now we have more clarity on the matter. Legendary tier items will still roll with their own high-end special affixes that affect how skills or character aspects behave. However, instead of a special affix being assigned to a specific legendary item, now each legendary will roll with a random special affix. Yes, you heard it right. You very well could end up with multiple legendaries across various slots with the same affix sporting different percentage factors. The amount of legendary affixes has been adjusted and more will be added over time. Additionally, it should be noted that weapons will continue to offer attack while armor will only offer defense. This will continue to allow legendaries to remain in higher tier, but make them more flexible per slot if you're planning on mingling them along with sets or even uniques. Say you want to have a certain affix available to your character, but it's on a legendary helmet. However, if you find a same affix on a bracer and your helmet slot for a set piece or an awesome unique and you want both bonuses, now you can have your cake and eat it too. Uniques. Replacing legendaries and changing from mythics, we see the return of unique grade items. These items will be appearing with the same legendary affix every time instead of being a random roll like legendaries. These items will also be heavily class themed and each affix will typically reflect that, pertaining to class-specific skills and talents. How you customize your build to fit the various items now available to you, or vice versa, is completely up to you, keeping with the Diablo IV development team's focus on player agency in finding the playstyle that works for you as you explore Sanctuary and fend off the forces of the burning hells. Well, that wraps up the last quarterly update for 2020. The next big update will happen at BlizzConline in February, and according to the game developer Louis Barriga, we can expect another chunky update in the form of a video panel during the online convention, including something that, in his words, involves a new version of the campfire scene we showed you last BlizzCon. Thanks for watching. If you want to join us and roll with a crew that's going to be 500 plus deep in Diablo 4 on Discord, follow the links in the description below. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest Diablo 4 channels, news, and lore. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, Traveler.